There we go. Oh, the Sunday Millennial.
Right on set.
Hello, and thanks for joining us on the Sunday Millennial. I am your friend and host, back, Dave,
Like you never left.
the Millennial moderator. Yeah, I think something happened last week. No one even addressed why I was gone, where I was. It was I wasn't even here.
It wasn't worth it.
I guess not.
The moderator did pretty well, I must say.
I got raving reviews about how the new one did as opposed to the old one, so.
I didn't even watch it. I actually did. I lied. I had to watch it. Very good, by the way. Very good. Yeah. Made me feel really good about myself as I was watching and realizing they could do the show without me.
Show goes on.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, we live by that mantra. The show goes on. And this show will go on, too. We are joined by Kyler.
Hey, Dave. Hope everyone's ready.
We are. We're also joined by Donald.
Hi, David. Good to be back.
Good to be back. Good to see you.
Sure.
We have CJ running the board.
Hello.
Good to see you. And our special guest, Jill. That's enough of you. I'll lay down.
Bye, Jill.
Lay down. She's just here for looks. So, thanks for joining us. We don't have a guest tonight. It's not Jill. But we thought we would take this time, since we don't have a guest. I think this might be the first episode we don't have a guest, right? This season, at least, since the new change and things like that, right?
Yeah, this is our ground zero, no guests.
Oh.
Just us. Just me,
Just
you,
us.
Kyler, and CJ.
Oh.
The team.
The Fab Four.
Yeah.
Which is good. So we thought we'd take this time to kind of just introduce ourselves a little bit, because there might be people listening that have not listened to the podcast when it was just audio, new guests, whatever you want to call it. But we thought we'd take this opportunity to introduce ourselves. So we'll start with CJ. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you like about the podcast, your role.
Well, I think you already know I'm the editor because David says it all the time.
The entertainment editor.
Yes.
Alliteration, please.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, I like being on the podcast. Is that what you want me to say? I mean, I hate working here. No, I do love working for this this thing that we do every week. I love being the editor. I like working the board, and yeah.
You're the behind the scenes man.
True.
And what do you do?
What do I
Outside of
do?
the podcast, yeah.
I work like everyone else does, hopefully.
Trucker Supply?
You have that blue collar job, right?
Yes, I do.
And you also do you do an internship.
Yes, I
for
do an
film.
internship. Yes, I do. Yes.
What does that entail?
Working with people on set, with audio, video, can entail a bunch of things.
Right.
It just depends on what needs to be done.
But you work in film production and things
Yes,
like that.
correct.
Yes.
Yes.
Hence why I gave you the entertainment editor title.
Okay. But I didn't have that. I wasn't interning when we actually started.
So you're the glue man. You, make everything happen.
Mhm.
You do a little bit of
True.
everything.
Yes.
Wow, very important.
Man with multiple
Jack of all trades.
yeah, jack of all
actually.
trades, whatever the hell it's called.
That's you.
Yeah.
And we always appreciate you. So
Thanks.
we'll go to Donald next.
Well, hello.
We'll go this way.
Yeah. We get it. Yeah, so my name's Donald Deibler. At Donnie Steak and Eggs on Instagram for anyone who actually would probably go look that up. Which is actually funny because my old Instagram was Donnie Cupcake, which I thought would have been a delicious name. Then I started going keto, and I'm like, well, I just don't play that game anymore. So I changed it to Steak and Eggs. But that's besides the point. I guess the reason why I'm probably even sitting in this chair is because I got really into podcasting back when I started listening to a couple of different guys, Joe Rogan, Dave Asprey, Bulletproof Radio, guys like that I listen to for information and just trying new things for health and wellness, really how I got into it. And then you brought me on your show, and I fell in love, and that's why I'm here. That's why I sit here. I actually really like meeting people on this format. It's probably the funnest way, and it's the realest way, and it's a fun time being in this room, but it's also a really cool way to find out new things that you might want to try. That's what I do. I always listen to a podcast and then find the cool things in it and try to apply them in my life, because I have never met anyone in this setting that would lie for any benefit outside of just trying to help someone out. Usually it's a very easy thing to give out raw information that could only help people. So that's why I like this. I think it's cool seeing people like in the past. We've had Shannon and Jimmy and Dave Cantwell and other people that we've had in the show that I pull one thing out of each person and I try to apply it. So shout out to those guys who came on the podcast. Love them. Can't wait to get more, and can't wait to give out more information and fun.
And have them back, too.
Absolutely.
Eventually. And, yeah, I think that you and I agree on the philosophy of podcasting, too. We say it. I say it a lot. It's not a tweet. It's not a post. You know, you can express yourself, be authentic on a podcast because it's a lengthy conversation. And there's a lot you can get from it, too, of course. And, you know, we support them, they support us, so we have the same vision. And for context, too, Donnie and I are best friends, so it's not like he's a random person that, you know, came on the show. He's I'm just saying, you know.
I'm flattered.
I hope you are. Kyler, you're next.
Great. I'm Kyler. I'm the sportscaster here for the show. And I promise you, I know I've been saying this for a while, but we will have a sports show coming soon once sports gets going. So
Yet to air.
Yet to air. But just in my personal life, I'm a social studies teacher. I'm a coach, so I try to bring that to this podcast for our team here. I love sports, and I also help run my family's small business, an ice cream shop. So once again, that's kind of what we're about as well, bringing on people who can talk about, you know, their experiences, whether they're business people or just, you know, whatever occupation that they do. And really what you know I love about podcasts is just in general is just having conversations, listening to others, truly listening and talking about what's going on, current events, and having a difference of opinion. And that's important with being able to debate or talk about things, is just having that difference of opinion and being able to listen. So that's something, you know, I try to portray on this show, and I think everyone on our show does that, and that's what we're about. So
yeah, that's good. I like it all. I'm Dave Fair, and I am the Millennial moderator, as I say every episode. But I also function as a chaplain at a VA hospital, and also a pastor at church. So my vocation is ministry. Wasn't my original career path, but God called me and I answered the call. What I like about the podcast, though, is everything we just said, too. It's conversation. It's more in depth. We get things from it. It's things like that. But the thing I also like about it, if we just go one step deeper with podcasts, is it emulates natural relationships. So there's something very authentic about podcasts where you meet somebody, you have them come in, because people don't see this, you know, off camera, but you know, people come here, we meet them, we kind of we might really know them or we might casually know them. They come here, we talk, we meet, they sit down, we have a conversation, we talk about current events and whatever we're talking about, but it emulates a real relationship, which happens in everyday life, but it's recorded and it's posted. And there's just something really beautiful about that, because that doesn't really happen nowadays with social media. It's a comment and a tweet, and it's very inauthentic. It's very superficial. But what we do here, though, is just very authentic, which is really nice, because we can capture real relationship building and growing and things like that, which is why I really like it. Your voice can really be heard here, and you can have real connection with people here on set and those watching, too. And that's wonderful and that's beautiful. And I think, honestly, I do think it makes a difference in people's lives, or it can. And that's, oddly enough, that's kind of the topic that we're gonna start here with this episode. Psilocybin, mushrooms. Yeah.
the ones that you eat on your steak.
I feel like we should have
Donnie steak and eggs.
We should have wore our tie-dye shirts for this episode. That's the now
I
I feel
literally
like
thought of it. I thought of it too. I really did. You're kind of wearing camo tie-dye, whatever.
That's
but
something.
I really did think about wearing it too, actually, because taking a trip. That's the topic, essentially. But honestly though, we've done a lot of research this week into psychedelics, more so psilocybin, because apparently there's a trend going on right now. Some people think that it's related to COVID-19 and isolation, but people are apparently now it's trending. People are growing their own mushrooms, and not like portobello mushrooms for the steak, as Kyler was alluding to. No. Mushrooms for getting the effect of the active ingredient psilocybin to get a trip. It's an interesting trend, considering that psilocybin, the drug, the component of it, makes you hallucinogenic, but it's usually done with medical assistance. So it's usually done in hospitals or clinics or things like that. Or you can take the more natural approach, the hippie approach, and do it with like a group with a guide.
Sherpa.
Yes.
Sherpa, yeah.
Yes. So it's something like that. So it's very interesting that people are deciding now to grow it. It's almost like a weed movement where people are growing it themselves and doing it on their own. Very interesting. So the questions that we're going to open up here with are, why do you even think people are doing psilocybin alone in the first place? Why would they do it alone, essentially? They're going to do it. Why would they do it alone?
Versus being with friends?
Right, versus doing it with a doctor or some kind of clinic or medical assistance, or doing it with a Sherpa in a group. Why would people want to do it alone?
Well, so from my perspective on it, when I first seen mushrooms being promoted heavily by supplement companies and people that are in the supplement space, they were promoting mushrooms as having just benefits wholly for health, holistically and mentally and physically. So what I mean by that is a couple of guys who promote like different types of mushrooms, like lion's mane mushroom.
That's a good one. Yeah.
So
it's powder, right? You can put in coffee.
Absolutely,
and things like that.
There's always the one that's being promoted. It's the I forget. It's a mushroom blend, like coffee type drink that you can drink,
Yeah.
and it's supposed to help with just mental benefits. So I guess if you try to look at just bare bones what mushrooms can do for you, we've always eaten mushrooms. I mean, I remember watching Viking movies set in the 1200s, and one of their staples, their diet was mushrooms, and that was edible mushrooms, and also they were using mushrooms the same way people use them today.
For psilocybin,
For psilocybin. So
that's how they connected to their Norse mythology too. Also, it's a way they also got into battle too, because like war is kind of crazy, and to be into it, almost like a stimulant. I almost think of it like when I because we this whole week we've researched this, and it goes back a long time, Mesoamerica and also Vikings too. But one of the reasons why they did it was also to connect to the gods, but also to get ready for battle, like a stimulant, like pre-workout.
Right. CJ?
So you were talking about like the coffee, like mushrooms.
Yeah.
Is it called mud water?
No, I've seen that before though too.
Four Skigmatic.
Four Sigmatic.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the one. It's pretty cool because, I mean, yeah, for a supplement, it's very easy to say something does something tangibly. You can do research on it, and then you can get some benefits from it. And it's the like over the course of time, it might help lower inflammation, or it might help with mental acuity, little things like that. But in terms of psilocybin, it's one of the only psychoactive compounds found in mushrooms. So you were saying how you've done research on it and people have done research on it. I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to do this. I've eaten mushrooms twice. So I feel like perspective-wise, I know. If my mom and dad watch this episode, sorry, mom and dad. But now you know.
Be proud.
Sure. Like, okay, so you can sell it in Colorado. I can eat it. Why not? But in terms of...
That's pretty good.
They do. I remember when they legalized it, I was like, maybe we should go out there. No. I haven't had them in a long time. But my experience on them was... It was interesting because up until that point, I drank alcohol. I had smoked weed. But when you take mushrooms that way, the natural way, whatever you want to call it, the ones that make you trip, it's such a mentally altering drug. It doesn't necessarily change the way you think, but it's your perception of everything. So your thoughts are still there, but it gives you a different perception on what you think and what you see. So
and who you are.
You can look at that. So I think for more acid, I think acid is a more of a clean trip. And this is what I've heard anecdotally. Mushrooms is more of a visual type trip. It's a more of a...
You'll see stuff.
It's more of an intense experience where you can't open up to your mind as much, but acid is a much lower dose of a similar style drug, LSD. So I think psilocybin, where that is, it's more of a party mushroom drug than compared to LSD. That's what.
Well, that's the
my
question I
takeaway
asked was why. So then, why would people take this alone? You didn't go into great detail about yours, but I mean, I imagine you did that with people. You didn't do that
Absolutely,
alone. You didn't do that in a room.
Yeah.
And listen to Pink Floyd. You did.
I did
that,
actually listen to Pink Floyd.
but you didn't do it alone, though.
No, right. It was with people.
So why would people do it alone?
Well,
then?
when
That's
we
the
did
question.
it wasn't for, well, let's take this drug and hopefully it will expand our minds so we can become better people. No, we were on the other side of it. Let's take this drug and get fucked up. But what it did for us is we all had fun. I got a little frightful at one point, but then I came back down. It's intense. Like it's not something that I would say everyone should do and needs to do mushrooms. But what you're talking about and what this I think is what it should be about is the microdosing of psilocybin that they're trying to get into medicine, where people can take it and it helps with recovery. It helps with PTSD. So
we'll get to that part of it. I mean, for now, I just want to focus on why people would do it alone, though.
Still can't answer that. I don't know why
That's
you would
okay.
sit there and
That's
eat
okay.
mushrooms by yourself. For us, if I would did them by myself, I don't know if I'd be seeing this show. I
know.
You have to be around people that
That's
are
what I'm
equally,
saying. That's why this trend is very fascinating because you don't usually do it alone. You do it in a controlled environment or with a group or a guide.
So what you're saying is what you found and came across, that more people are doing mushrooms by themselves, or is it more people doing psilocybin by themselves?
Well, they're growing mushrooms. There's a trend now. It's very trendy, and again, research says, articles say that it's attached to the COVID-19. That people are self-isolating now, and they're just wondering. They're thinking about themselves. They're thinking about like what's going on. Like who am I in this? All this is going on, and they've just decided to grow mushrooms with psilocybin in them and then take them. And then, so my natural first question is just why would they want to do it alone? You touched on a lot of stuff, Donald, that we'll definitely get into. But Kyle, I want to get your perspective about why people would do it alone.
Well, they must have seen the episode of Family Guy. Do you know what I'm talking about? When Brian does shrooms by
it's
himself,
hilarious.
And he's just tripping, and Stewie's trying to get him to calm down.
I don't
And
think
he's
I've seen
just
that one, actually.
just going and
It's
all
a
these
very good
different-
one.
Yeah, and he's just seeing all these things. Like he sees Peter, he sees Meg as these I don't know, these aliens or these worms.
Meg's a hideous creature,
Yeah.
of course.
And it's just it was pretty hilarious. But I kind of take the article that we were looking at talked about studies and how it helps with mental illness, and we've talked many times on this show how mental illness is a huge issue for a lot, especially right now with coronavirus. 1 in 4 people suffer from some form of mental illness in their lifetime, and so maybe people see this as an alternative. So I don't know, but the fact that you're saying people doing it alone is kind of.
But that's I know I'm hammering this down, but it's so important to know though that whether you do it or not, whether you try it or not, you need to know and you do research on it that it's not it's like peyote in a sense, but it's not weed, right? Like there's a lot of people that smoke weed socially or would do it in a group or at a party or whatever. But you can also do weed on your own. There's a lot of professionals out there, lawyers, doctors, everyone from the top to the bottom that smoke weed on their own. They come home, it's just the same thing as cracking a beer, but they smoke weed alone, and it's fine, and it chills them out. That's the effect. The purpose of it is to settle your mood. You've had a tough work day. Some people do it before they go to work. I don't know, but it's a mood settler. It just calms you down, and you can do it alone for that reason. But psilocybin is, for taking the mushrooms is very specific for doing it with a doctor or some kind of medical assistance or doing it with a group to have a spiritual experience. Usually the medical part is to treat something, and the group thing is for some kind of spiritual dimensional thing. But the common denominator is that you do it in a group. So it's very fascinating and very interesting that people are deciding to grow their own, almost like the old weed movement. Like weed started to really pick up because people started to grow it themselves in their homes, like gardening and doing it on their own. And we're finding this now with psilocybin. So it's kind of under the radar, but it's
Do you think that's what it's going to get to? Do you think it's going to get to
it's a
something?
It's a new movement,
like
and not only
marijuana?
and it has similarities to marijuana, because now marijuana has become legalized in many states. There's medical marijuana. It's getting a little. By and large, it's getting more common. Yeah, are we finding a new common trend with psilocybin? And that leads to my next question, which I'll ask you too. Are these substances like psilocybin and many others, anything from alcohol to weed to crack cocaine, are they the best means to find purpose and meaning for one's life? Because that seems to be there's two schools of thought that this drug psilocybin can help you with depression or some kind of designated or diagnosed illness, depression, PTSD, anxiety, things like that. And then the other school is, if you want to find purpose and meaning, you need to go deep. And this is a tool to get you there, to go deep and find that spiritual experience. Those two schools of thought. But are these things like that, are they the best means to get there?
That's such a huge question.
I know.
Like, it's not even, I can't even answer that question. Like, how does anyone decide what's right for somebody if they're depressed or if they feel as though that what they're trying isn't help? So, like, for example, if psilocybin had even a marginal benefit to help you overcome your depression, why deny that to somebody? Clearly, it's something that if it's controlled, you can take it in a manner that if it would actually make a net benefit, why take that away from somebody, especially if it's something that you can take in a pill form or in a mushroom form? Now, the other side of that, too, is if somebody's depressed and they skip A through Z to help themselves before they turn to psychoactive drugs, then I'm saying to that person, you probably need to clean up some things before you worry about mushrooms solving all your problems. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying that I
think it's a risk. It's a risk.
Well, it's a risk, but it's also like, why go out and buy... Why would I want to go out and buy a boat if I'm in debt? Like, I don't have the money to do that. Like, if I don't have the mental space to start doing something that might alter my mind, why would I go out and put myself in more debt if I can't afford something? So it's like, if I'm not worrying about things that will get me to a good place where I can maybe float, and then if something like mushrooms makes you go from everything's okay to it's just a little bit better, then yeah, start there. But if I'm massively depressed because someone just died or I have some issue that I need to physically or mentally get over, I wouldn't turn to mushrooms right away. I mean, that's my personal opinion. I mean, maybe it's helped people when I'm just away from that side of the world. But
no, but I think the point you're trying to make is it's not Tylenol.
Right. It shouldn't be.
Someone died, you're depressed. Oh, I got it.
Right. Hey, have you tried mushrooms? It's like,
yeah,
well, listen, your dog,
it's not
your mom just died. Maybe you should grieve for about 2 or 3 months and then take a couple breaths and try to focus and reflect on her life, your life, and the lives around you. Don't put yourself on mushrooms right away because it's something that you need. But to the people that use it for extracurricular and they want to have fun, there is a whole world to that. And I think that if it's something that's not hurting you, then I'm on that team of, hey, it's your body, your life. Why deny someone that if they're a good functioning person?
That's fascinating.
Right?
So your perspective is that it should not be used as a Tylenol. It should not be used as a magical pill that you put in when you're depressed. But you're all for, if you kind of got your life figured out somewhat, you're stable, and you want to have fun, just same as alcohol, go for it.
Treat it as an extracurricular or something that is to be celebrated with, right? If you have a reason to celebrate, break out the mushrooms, baby. Or
that's a fascinating perspective, actually. Honestly,
is that not everyone's? I think that should be a standard across the board. Why give somebody alcohol if they're also in debt, can't pay their bills, and now they have an alcohol addiction? It's like, okay, you're probably should be more worried about keeping a stable life versus drinking
it's fascinating
alcohol.
because
That's their freedom. That's their freedom. They don't want to wear a mask. They don't need to.
All right, yeah. Let's not go there. We're not there yet.
I know.
But it's fascinating because it's fascinating to me because I was very clever about how I worded this. I said substances, which can be, like I said, it could be anything from alcohol to crack cocaine. And they're not doing studies on the benefits, well, some have, on the benefits of alcohol consumption to one's health, or at least to severe medical, psychological diagnoses. So they're doing tests on people with PTSD, dissociative identity disorder, schizophrenia, things like that. And how can psilocybin treat that or be used to treat that? Just testing it. They're in the testing stage of it. They don't do that with alcohol, though.
Well, I think
that is a very known, like what you were saying, like a very known, like I got my life together. I'm going to crack open a beer and drink, or I'm going to go to a party, or I'm going to go to a bar. I don't see many psilocybin bars out there.
No, you won't. And I don't think people who probably have, somebody is diagnosed with schizophrenia or something like that, nobody's saying, maybe you should try alcohol to lower your symptoms for schizophrenia.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
It's so, because alcohol is a whole different animal. I think alcohol is something that you can't just take one alcohol pill and it lasts for 8 hours. You can drink to excess. You can keep drinking. It's like water.
The potency is a lot stronger.
It's a different. You can't titrate it. It's not like I have one beer, my schizophrenia goes away. I'm sure schizophrenics probably tend to be alcoholics as well because of the symptoms that are associated.
They self-medicate. Yeah,
absolutely. I know plenty of people who aren't schizophrenic that self-medicate with alcohol.
Absolutely.
I can go buy it right now. There's plenty of places that I can go get it. It's between that and caffeine, the number 1 and 2 probably overused substances in the world, and nicotine as well, which no one's stopping the schizophrenic.
That's the big
smoking.
3, right? Of stimulants, yeah.
Right.
Of natural commercial stimulants is nicotine, caffeine, and alcohol.
Right. What's interesting about the world in the United States, I just listened to a podcast, forget who it was again. Once again, I'm always listening to something or watching something and get something from it. But it was about it was about diabetes. So this was great. It was Rob Wolf. He's a guy who's in the keto space as well as carnivore. And he talked about how today, actually in 2017, there were over 38,000 studies about diabetes. And that's a lot of studies about diabetes. Yet diabetes rates keep going up. So if diabetics keep coming into people keep becoming diabetic, but we've studied 38,000 different ways how diabetes works in the human body, shouldn't we be experts on diabetes, and shouldn't there be no diabetes in the world?
No.
That's not the case. Obviously, it's not the case. So what's happening is we become super experts about diabetes, but we're choosing not to treat it. And he alluded to this. Imagine if we had 38 studies how to build a bridge. Every time we just discovered a new study, we'd get better at building a bridge. We'd be experts at building bridges. Mm-hmm. How could we be bad at building bridges if we've studied it so many times? But it's usually because of one thing is more profitable to build and one thing is more profitable to prescribe medication to. So in this case, we know a lot about some things, but there's this hierarchy of, well, diabetes is very profitable to some industries. So it's like, why would you not just say to yourself, okay, well, it is sometimes beneficial to microdose with LSD in some patients, and that would probably be great, but it also, what if it cures it? Then how do you control it? It would become another substance you'd have to control.
It's very layered. I think you're on to something very interesting, though, but it's not one answer.
No, it never is.
No, it usually never is. But I mean, in that case, like, we've researched it heavily, used the analogy of the building bridges. But the question comes back to is, why do we need bridges? And or why do I need to not be overweight? And or, why do I need to exist? Essentially, it goes back to, no, seriously, because I think, and we're going to dig deeper into this. I got to get Kyler in the conversation here with the question, but you're leading us there. Kyler, you answer first with.
To answer your question, Dave, we need bridges to travel over water.
Do we? Why do we need to go over there?
Well, I don't know. But
exactly.
I just want to answer your question first.
Yeah.
I think the studies that Donald talked about is interesting, right? So many people, if there's one study about marijuana and a benefit, people who smoke marijuana, they look at this study and they're pointing to it. They're like, look at this, Same thing if there was, a study that was out that sugar helps millennials focus more, we would be looking at that. Oh, we gotta have Red Bull. We gotta drink a ton of Red Bull.
2 per day.
At least. Maybe one Monster too.
To kind of get back on track, I agree with Donald. Like, what's the purpose of using mushrooms? Is there a reason why you're using them? I think that's important. But then the other point is everyone functions differently, right? Maybe some people use marijuana, use mushrooms or whatever to perform or to maybe come up with ideas. So I think that plays a role too. Like,
an artistic role is what you're saying. Creative role.
Yeah.
Okay.
But everyone's different. So if it works for maybe some, it might work for some people. Other people, it doesn't. Maybe they can't function on when they use substances, as David alluded to. So I just think it's hard to say because everyone's different.
Yeah.
So
I agree. What's interesting is if you take out the word psilocybin from this podcast and you put in any other substance, SSRIs, pot, cocaine, take it in, pull it out, take it in. In our history, we've all used, not we, but the United States and, to what your topic is about, is we've all used some form of substance or another, and it's been in a limelight, and there are studies about all of them. And people like to point, and since we're talking about studies, people will point to studies that help and to studies that hurt, and then we look at both sides of information, and it really just doesn't give anyone a solid, concrete answer. And it kind of goes with the state of the company, what the country, like the pulse of it. Like, if depression rates keep going up, and there's just no good evidence that SSRIs are really helping people, then maybe we do look to a new substance. But I mean, there's always a hierarchy of what we should do and shouldn't do. I feel like it's not qualified to even answer this question. It's just
That's fine.
It's
all
so different.
But we all have our own experiences and our own anecdotal evidence. We're just speaking of. If anybody's watching this podcast thinking we're experts on psilocybin, then tune off. For real.
Get on here and help us.
We're observing the world and the trends of the world, current events, trends, pop culture, and things that are trending, and we're commenting on it. That's all this is. Here's the thing: we all know people who are depressed, have anxiety, have PTSD, don't have their lives together, and are suffering. We all know them. We all do. You can probably name 5 people, different people, off the top of our heads. And that was the purpose of the question. Yes, we're talking about psilocybin, but I expanded it to all substances because people are looking to substances, whether it's alcohol, marijuana, crack cocaine, whatever.
Crack cocaine.
Crack or cocaine.
I'm
or
thinking about starting a crack cocaine regimen.
Maybe. I mean, the thing is, and I get back to this point too. To me, when I researched psilocybin, Kyler asked, what were they doing in the first place? The main reason why people do it is, A, for medical diagnoses of psychological disorders. Dissociative identity disorder, which is multiple personalities. Depression, severe depression, like really bad depression. Schizophrenia, those things. And they test that in the labs. And you do that in a lab doctor thing. Or the other one is a religious experience. Finding purpose and meaning, understanding yourself, self-discovery. People go on that trip. They go to the Amazon. They go wherever they go. And they have that, what is it called again? Sherpa?
Sherpa, yeah, Sherpa.
They go to the Sherpa. They have a group there, and people want to discover themselves. So they have to do that to find meaning and purpose.
A spirit quest.
Right, a spirit quest. And
it's just a PC way of saying
it's okay. So
isn't it?
When I watched Blue Mountain State, it was a great show that was on back in like the early 2010s, and Thad Castle, main character, goes on a vision quest, eats a bunch of mushrooms, ends up in the forest, and he's like seeing his whole life in reverse, and like seeing all the people he's met throughout his college, and he's like trying to figure out who he is, what he wants to do, and then at the end of it, he realizes what he wants to do, and he went on his vision quest, not a spirit quest, a vision quest, to find what he wants.
Yeah. So those are the reasons why, Kyle, you were asking why people would do that. So then I asked the question, why to the why? So people are trying to understand what's their meaning and purpose. What are the factors that are, we're growing deeper now. So what are the factors that are inhibiting people today? Millennials, Gen Z folk, CJ's folk, and maybe even Gen Xers and older people. But what are the factors impeding meaning and purpose for people? Why are people so lost? Essentially is what I'm asking. Why are people so lost that they have to turn to mushrooms to find meaning and purpose and self-discovery? Tell me.
I don't know this. I'm lost in this question. Literally, I don't know how to answer.
But it's just why are people so lost? What are the factors? Tell me. Why are people so lost?
I don't have them for you.
Give me examples.
I don't know.
Give me your opinion.
I'm gonna shoot to Kyler in this one.
I looked at you initially, so I'm sorry. I was up to anyone, but I know I looked at you.
Scary question.
No, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely different. I mean, people are especially just think of COVID. We're isolated much more than we've ever been before, right? Think of social media. You know, we're connected with people, but we're not really connected with people. We're not having that in person like we are at this podcast.
Hello, podcast.
We're not having that person-to-person connection. And I think that maybe because so many people are losing, you know, we're texting instead of calling on the phone and hearing someone's voice, right? I just think there's so many factors. Yeah. And you know, the boomers would love to hear this right now, you know, talking about how, you know, they're kind of the glory days and kind of that's how all these millennials and kids don't know how to do those simple things.
Right,
and
make a phone call, connect, talk.
Yeah. So I think that plays a huge role.
So okay, what I hear from you is there's a loss of connectivity to one-on-one to human interaction.
Can I say, I don't think I've ever said this on the podcast, but convenience kills.
Jesus Christ. My God. Don't listen to any other podcasts. Let's just pretend you listened to this first time and this is the first time you heard them say
It's
that.
interesting. So
But you're right.
To say it in a shorter sentence, it's like, hey, I haven't seen anyone in a while. Does anyone have any mushrooms? I just need to reconnect. Right? That's like pick up the mushroom phone. Haven't had a connection in a while, and the world we're living in has become so abrupt with social media and phones and screens that I feel nothing anymore, and now I need mushrooms. I'm not trying to play light on people that use mushrooms, but it's like essentially with anything else, it's an escape. It's like I've come to a point where I can't find something that's giving me purpose. And I always hear in the LSD mushroom space that it is a spiritual, you know, religious experience. To your point, it's something that gives you a new outlook on life that can refresh your brain and almost reset the clock a little bit so that you have a more of a open and probably more curious look at the world. I would say that's a very decent way of at least looking at it.
Isn't it kind of like virtual reality? Like we have to, you know, find this other reality, this other life. And this is kind of maybe some people's way of doing that. You know, some other people, they play a video game and they live a second life on their video game, right? Yeah. And it kind of seems like this is maybe just an alternative to that. You know, so many people are okay with living that different life. I don't know. It's just...
No, I like what you're saying. I think I grew up playing RPGs, like role-playing games, like
what's that mean?
Skyrim, Fable. I mean, I had a whole bunch of them back in the day.
Oblivion?
I mean, you can call Grand Theft Auto a RPG. That's kind of a role-playing game. Your character changes throughout. But in those games, it really was like I sat there with a controller in my hand and hours passed, and it was like and I think men use it a lot more, but I know a lot of guys that use video games as an escape from their world and their reality, and they log on every night and play. And I do it. I used to do it all the time. I do it a little bit less now that I'm busy, but if I'm not busy, I have nothing to do. Before we did this podcast, I would game every night because it unplugs you from the just sad things that are in the media and then the things that are tough in your life. So yeah, comparatively, I'm sure there's probably tangible benefits and, you know, negative effects to video gaming hours at time, just as much as there are probably negative and positive effects to psilocybin that if you use it too much. So it's like with anything in moderation, you know, you can use it to your benefit if you're, and going back to the earlier part of this podcast, where if you are at a good place in your life and you can afford to escape from your then reality and you don't have mental illnesses, it is a safer option than I think some of the other things out there if you choose to escape.
It's interesting. Oh, you want to...
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. Like, it's kind of an escape, you know, just what do you want to do to kind of escape the reality or what's going on? Just like, you know, there's many different diets, right? There's many different studies that support those things. You know, what's the best thing? We kind of don't know, but we kind of hold on to what we're kind of hearing, and you know, maybe if this is something that helps us, maybe that's what we go to. So it's interesting. It's just kind of the unknown. You don't really know. So, you know, we hear this is maybe okay, and maybe some people are more perceptive to maybe trying this alternative, but I don't know.
It's sad. I've been very good at manipulating this conversation because I've been getting at the bigger point. And I think that people, and I don't mean to get too deep here, but I'm going to get that deep, is, just what is your purpose and meaning in life? That's what it comes down to. It really does.
You're right.
I've been beating around the bush a lot, but
I want to touch on one more thing that he said.
Go ahead.
Only because I think this is really interesting, is that back when the government, let's just jump 70 years back. We're in 1950. I'm just going to pick that year. We're in 1950.
Go ahead.
We have a slender down government. There's less policies. There's less organizations. There's maybe 4 channels on TV, if there was TVs
Right.
back in the 50s.
There was.
I can't remember. So
4 channels.
that information stream, instead of being this wide, is this wide. So let's say the diet back then, which was a low fat, high carb diet, along with some animal proteins and stuff like that. That was the recommended diet by the FDA. No, not FDA. Whatever the organization.
It would have been the FDA.
FDA. Okay. So you got that information. That was church. You got that. Everyone did it. Okay, that's the right thing to do. There's no other studies. There's no other information.
Eat
You can't go on
bacon and
Google.
eggs and
You
drink
can't.
milk.
You can't go on a podcast. You can maybe meet a couple people that would say anecdotally, no, this works, that doesn't. You should do this. But in general, we were all alluded to a certain amount of information that gave us an only certain amount of options, and things are probably less stressful because you didn't question it. It wasn't, even if it did or didn't work, there wasn't 9,000 other options. There wasn't a Google search engine with 50,000 results. It was, you got one thing that was told to you, or it was passed down from a generation before you that was the smart thing to do, which is interesting because now that we live in a time, and Kyler said about he related diets to drugs, whereas some things we have studies on, some things we don't, we wouldn't even be having that argument or that understanding of it 50 or 70 years ago. But now that we do have that luxury, it makes things more confusing. Like, we literally have more options, but know less about what we should all do, or what even down to the individual case. Like, everything's trial and error. It's like you have way too many options. By the time you've picked and tried all the options, you'd be 100 years old.
So
And next year
so
it'll
the
be
argument
200.
you're saying is that
It's like a full course buffet.
Ouch.
yeah. So you're saying is right now what we're facing right now is too many options.
Yeah.
People are just overloaded.
It's exhausting.
I would agree with that, but it still comes down to what's your meaning and purpose.
I don't know.
Why are you here?
Because we met here at 8:30 to the podcast.
No. Why are you here? I imagine, I can figure it out.
But once again, it's different for everyone, right? And I think
True.
we talked about that earlier on how every person.
so go
is
find
different,
it out. Go
right?
discover it.
Discover what your own
Yeah.
purpose is. Yeah.
And maybe in a healthy way. I would think that, for you, Donald, it's giving people joy and an escape. What you do, you provide a joy and an escape for people.
In
for what you do.
my profession?
Yes.
Sure. You could say that.
Kyler, you educate the youth of America. That's very noble of you to do. That's a purpose in life. That's your purpose, right? You're an educator, a teacher. That's your
Helping
life.
Helping others.
By educating them. It's not just helping others. It's specific to educate them to be better people.
You got it.
You're educating the next doctors, the next lawyers, the next scientists. You're educating people.
The next drug dealers too, if I may. They're in there.
There you go.
There you go.
You're right. You're right, though.
I remember my teacher Kyler, and we talked about social studies. He really wanted to sell crack.
Hope that's not the case.
I hope not either.
But it doesn't matter. Actually, it really doesn't matter because the purpose is still the same, though. It's to educate people. It's to make people's lives better.
Right.
You know that when your students graduate, Kyler, they'll be better people. Donald, when people go into use your amusements, that they'll get some joy and satisfaction and escape from it.
Right.
It's a purpose. You may not think about that all the time, but I know there's something in your brain that tells you that you're giving people a release and escape. I know there is.
Are you alluding that we found our purpose without mushrooms? Are you saying it's possible?
Yes. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I know my purpose, too. My purpose is to lead people to God.
What about people who can't find their purpose and mushrooms is that option? Is that what this all boils down to? Is if you
It does.
That's
a debate.
If you check off all the ticks in the box, okay, I've tried this, I've done that, I went to school, everything I was supposed to do, everything that I wanted to do,
Or not.
I've accomplished
Or not.
it, and I feel nothing for it, and
Or
now I
not.
don't know what to do.
Or not. I mean, it's both and. So it's the people who have had a shitty life, didn't have a father, didn't have a mother, whatever, and/or got into drugs at 13, just had a horrible life, went to prison, did crime, and they're figuring out their life. What is my meaning and purpose? I've been to juvie, I've been to jail, I've done this, I've done that, or I went to college, I had a good life, good family, good friends, and I just don't know what the hell I want to do with my life. Both and.
Okay.
But purpose and meaning, that's the big thing. Purpose and meaning. What is your purpose? Why are you here? Why are you here?
What if we put
purpose.
both people that you just described, the 13-year-old drug addict and the 28-year-old I've done everything, nothing makes sense anymore guy.
That's me.
They're both 28, and we put them in one room, and we're like, all right, so you guys came here for one reason. You guys don't have any purpose. You guys wrote that down in the little box there. You guys said you don't have no purpose. So we are going to just give you guys a bunch of mushrooms and give you about 18 hours and go.
Go. Yeah.
And see what they come out.
That's the debate. So do you need a substance? Do you need a psilocybin or mushrooms? Do you need marijuana? That's the thing. Or do you need more of a lot of other things? Do you need a stable dad, a stable mother, a stable father? Do you need purpose? Do you need God? I mean, I'm going to go there. Do you need God? Do you need that purpose? Higher purpose, things like that.
Yeah.
Do you just need a vocation? Values. What do you value? What are your values? What do you want to self-discover? Do you just need to go on a hike, for God's sakes? But this is important for us, though. It really is, because we're in rural Appalachia, Pennsylvania, and this is a big problem. I say it. We know people that don't have purpose or meaning, that are addicted to these substances that we talked about. Not psilocybin specifically, but the same purpose. They don't know what they're doing. They don't have the guide. They don't have the purpose. They don't have the meaning. Why are they here? I go back to it. Why are they here? So it's an important discussion to have. So can we do it with drugs, or can we do it with another system?
Which one's cheaper?
The old system.
Okay.
If you have a good father, if you have good family stability, and you develop, because we're a little biased, because we've all had that. We've had stable families that have given us purpose and meaning and stability and development.
Right.
That we can figure it out. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. But what if we took the same person that didn't have all that, and we could just jump the line and give him purpose by putting him on mushrooms?
That's the debate. That's the debate.
So mushrooms is essentially a childhood package of a mom and dad combo with no drugs involved, no intravenous anything, for a 20-year, you can experience 20 years of good, healthy childhood upbringing, growth, puberty, and it's just in a pill. Is that how you can market it then?
You could, but it's not, though. The psilocybin,
what if it gives you the exact same thing?
No, the psilocybin is essentially making you look. It's making you look back at those past traumas. So your description.
And parenting them in your own mind.
No, it's looking back at your past traumas and realizing that from a different perspective. So you relive them, but you relive them from a third person, right? So you look at them and be like, wow, my father was a drunk and was absent. My mother worked all the time and didn't care for me. The only friends I made were people who did drugs. You look at that from a third person perspective, and it's supposed to reframe your trauma in a sense so you can have understanding and then hopefully move forward. That's what psilocybin is. It's not you take it, you feel good, you move on. It's not that. The trip is you look at all that from a third person perspective, and you can see it from where you are now and look at it and say, oh God, my dad wasn't around. My mom worked too much. I was alone. I turned to bad people for friends. That's the purpose of it. Or if you're in the party aspect of it, where you financially stable, economically stable, had a good family, and you want to have fun, you can kind of look at your life and say, damn, I don't do anything. I work for money.
So what if it has the opposite effect, a paradoxical effect? You take it and you don't have problems, and then it unpurposes you. Because with every drug comes a warning label, right? People who take SSRIs for depression, one of the side effects is depression. So what if I take psilocybin in let's say the artificial form, they make a pill of it and it's meant to be microdosed, yada, 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 30 days, I don't know, 10 micrograms a day, I don't know, whatever. But I start taking it and everything was fine before, but maybe I had a little bit of depression, but I just come out of it worse off.
Because you don't have purpose.
But it takes my purpose away. What if I did have purpose, or I thought I did, and then at
You
the end
thought
of it,
you did. That's the key.
well,
You
isn't
thought
that
you
the
did.
same thing?
You work the same 9 to 5.
I thought I had purpose.
You work for money.
But if I thought I had purpose and that was getting me through my life and I wasn't actively depressed from it, and then I take psilocybin and realize I have no purpose and I'm depressed about that, does that mean I'm growing?
You don't have purpose. What you're doing is you're working for money. So if you're very well off and you work for money, you had a good family, good friends, you work for money, you're an engineer or lawyer, whatever. You make good money, you're having fun. You know, you can go with the guys and you take psilocybin or whatever, you do some mushrooms, and you're just like, oh shit, what I do doesn't matter. Or at the very least, it doesn't matter to me. Again, it goes back to purpose and meaning. It's very essential to one's development and growth. So I think those people with those reactions are very well off. They're very successful, but they don't have real purpose and meaning for their life, for their context. Because there are doctors and lawyers and engineers that do very, very good because that's their purpose. They're making the world a better place. It's bigger than them. Essentially, that's the question you have to ask too with meaning and purpose. Is what you're doing bigger than you? With Kyler, it is bigger than him. He's teaching. It's his job. He gets paid for it, but it's bigger than him. He's teaching the next lawyers and doctors and that stuff. For you, it's bigger than you too. When you fix those machines and stuff like that, you are giving people joy and happiness that you will never meet. It's bigger than you.
Yeah, but I think you're thinking that the psilocybin aspect of it gives you purpose, and that's all it does, and it can't have any deleterious effects.
No, I don't. My opinion, it doesn't.
You don't think psilocybin at a microdose level that they're trying to promote it for this new controlled substance, which once again farmers going to have access to it.
Mm-hmm.
I, as probably a Pennsylvanian, won't be able to go out and buy psilocybin.
No.
It'll be a new
prescription.
It'll be a prescription drug. So when you do it that way, and I go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist and they prescribe it to me, just like any other prescribed drug, it's not all happiness and smiles. If everybody took psilocybin and it worked for literally everybody, and there's no bad thing that could happen from it, like psychosis or something crazy like that, why isn't everyone on it? If the government can make money off it and it does all these wonderful things for you, why isn't everybody on psilocybin?
Because that's not the only way people can get meaning or purpose. That's the whole point. It's like God, you know. There's the other way too. You know, the old-fashioned way. There's a way to get meaning and purpose to serve a higher cause, things like that. You know, God saved my life, so I owe my life to God, and I belong to Jesus, so I serve others. That's purpose and meaning. Like if you took that away from me, I would be that statistic where I go downhill.
But I think on the topic of psilocybin, I think it's something that
but people use that for that.
To
find the meaning and purpose.
I think it can be used. It can be used as a way to discover endogenously what your purpose in life could be. It's not here, man, you have no purpose. You don't actively seek purpose. You don't have any way of finding purpose other than taking psilocybin. I just think that is a cop-out. How can that possibly be the only answer we have for finding purpose? I know you're alluding to Jesus and well, I don't want to say Jesus is like,
you are though. Yeah.
God is the only way to find
I was trying to get that to the point that people don't go to church anymore. They don't go to. I'm not going to call anyone out, but people don't go to church anymore. They don't. They have no. You have no higher calling. You have jobs, not vocations, not life purposes. Why are you here? I go back to that. Why are you here?
Well, for some people, they built a life of why they're here, and some people, I think, good
sane people do that.
Right.
People who are suffering from drugs and addiction, no fathers, no mother, or whatever combination you want to go there, people bad around them. They have no meaning and purpose. They don't. They have no idea. They live life wondering, why the hell was I even born? Why? I hate my life. My dad wasn't around. My mom overworks.
Yeah, you're painting one type of person. And
That's
that's
a lot of people, though.
there's a lot
It
of
is
people.
a lot
like
of
that.
people.
There's a lot of people like that, and those same people does not mean that they should be taking more drugs to affect their life in a positive manner.
Hopefully. That's the point I was trying to make, is hopefully. The point I was trying to make in this discussion was that hopefully we don't rely on this drug. I agree. I like drinking. You know, I do. It's a social thing. I love going to bars, the firehouse, things like that. It's a fun thing. But I don't rely on it. I don't. And actually, at one point I did. The car accident I did. I relied on that as a means to numb my feelings because of my guilt and shame. I did. I relied on that. And unfortunately, fortunately I had good people around me to help me. But unfortunately, I had also people around me that enable me to do that. You know, like, hey, take this, you know, to numb it. And maybe it was good, maybe it was bad. I don't really know. But the fact of the matter is that I think people use these substances, whatever it may be, to numb that feeling of, I don't really know.
Well, then can we agree that the only, I think, applicable purpose outside of small, studies and some certainly extreme situations, microdosing or just taking LSD or mushrooms in general can help a small subset of people, very small subset of people with depression, if that is the only thing standing between them and finding purpose. But that purpose is built by years of hard work and positive experiences in your life, positive relationships, and once again, having mom and dad's help. But it's not the only way to have purpose. I think purpose outside of also having a religious intent or a religious practice is building your life from the ground up, going through hardships and trials, and finding things that work for you as an individual outside of drugs. I think drugs come into the picture maybe late 20s to early 30s.
Yeah.
Like maybe if I chose to go out and do drugs tonight, I could probably strap my boots on tomorrow and sail through the next 10 years. I wouldn't need those same drugs again. I think, not saying that I am the luckiest person alive, that I've made it to a point where I am stable, but some people in similar situations can use psilocybin for a completely different purpose that can be purely positive, to look back and reflect on their lives to see the purpose that they've already built for themselves. I think that's what it is. I think it's endogenously already built. If you have purpose, it's already there. It's just something that opens your eyes. It's like waking up in the morning, and you always hear people say, when you wake up in the morning, think of 10 things that you're happy for. That same thing is exactly what you'd get with psilocybin. It just opens you up more emotionally to accept them as maybe a bigger truth. That's how.
Well, it's crazy because there's a spiritual practice, right? So there's a spiritual practice in Christianity. It's mostly in the Catholic Anglican tradition, but even in Protestants do it too. It's called the daily examine, right? So you wake up every morning and you realize, what are you grateful for, and what are you working on? Doesn't that sound like self-help, whatever you want to call it? But like, there's so much to religion that people don't understand, and that is provided. And I'm not saying that's the one route. I know I'm kind of biased and everything, and I manipulated the conversation to go that way, but it's okay. I'm not saying you have to do that, but it's your vocational goals of what your job is, what your purpose is, what your meaning is. Why the hell are you here? Why were you born, and what were you meant to do? And it could be to teach. The thing that drives you every morning is to teach the next person, the next people, to be the best they can be, to further humanity and make the world a better place. Or bring joy to people, and bring happiness, bring an escape to them, so that their mundane lives can have some kind of meaning. It can give them escape, whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be religious, but that's a big factor, of course, especially when the topic of psilocybin, when we talk about spiritual experiences, because it's about self-discovery. But I think you're right, though, Donald. I take your point in that these substances, especially psilocybin or medical marijuana, can be used for specific diagnoses of psychological disorders and can very, very much help them. The thing that I worry about, though, is people abusing them. The same with alcohol. If that's legal, or nicotine or caffeine, the big three we talked about, the unholy trinity, it's the same thing. And I feel like if this eventually becomes legal, people will abuse it and use it. We've seen it with fentanyl too. That's a big one. People overdosing on fentanyl because it's a very strong psychotropic drug that gives you a pain-killing release. People put patches on and things like that, and it kills them. So I'm worried. I'm not for or against the war on drugs, but it just worries me that people are. What worries me as a minister is that people are filling their lives with substances that can otherwise. They can fill their lives with meaning and purpose and vocation, such as teaching or whatever, or God, religion.
No, just find whatever your purpose is, whatever your niche is. And I think that's what you're saying. Find something other than, these substances. And maybe something like that helps you find, what your purpose is. But that's what it all comes down to, is finding that purpose, whether it's maybe religion, maybe it's a job that you love, maybe it's a person that you love, but just finding that purpose itself. So.
Well, it is. I mean, it's important. I mean, it's unfortunate because I see a lot of vets come in my VA that I work through. It's not a lot of immediate trauma. It's a lot of psychological things like that. And there's a lot of addiction and homelessness and things like that. And it mostly stems from not having a father, not having a mother, things like that. But the purpose is derived from them. And they turn to substances to fill those needs. I'm not here to preach on we shouldn't use substances. I said I like drinking alcohol. It's very social. I like letting loose. Those things can help, but they shouldn't be reliant upon. I think that's the major factor. Is what the purpose I was trying to bring this up was. People are now growing psilocybin, so it's become more independent. They're doing it on their own. They're not going to a clinic. They're not going to a Sherpa. They're growing it on their own, and they're doing it in their own homes. And I'm worried about the fact that people will rely on that now, another substance, to fill this hole that they have of meaning and purpose. Are you guys worried about that?
I mean,
is that the next marijuana? Is that the next drug?
If I could grow my own, let's say it was not Narcan. If I could grow my own Prozac, if I could grow my own statin drugs in my backyard, drugs that are completely controlled and regulated by the CDC, and for big pharma, I think those things that are artificially made at doses that can be too high if somebody had access to those things. That's why they're regulated, obviously, because of what they can do for your body. So I think the reason why cocaine isn't easily accessible because it can ruin people's fucking lives, which makes sense. Why would that be able to buy down at the drugstore? So, it's with anything else in moderation. If it's something that you see fitting, if you can make it fit in your life where it doesn't, like you said, ruin your life or you rely on it, then, I think the world we're living in is growing towards the openness and, use of these certain psychoactive drugs for a benefit. And it's a small net benefit. It's not like people go their whole lives, didn't have psilocybin, then they had psilocybin and they became trillionaires. It's not like they took psilocybin and lost 100 pounds. I see it as a way to make marginal effects in a certain direction if you use it for that. But if it's like with any other drug, if you take it to escape and you don't use it for any purpose outside of escaping, it's like we talked about with video games or something else where it's like you're just mindlessly numbing yourself because of the reality you live in. So with anything else, if you use it for fun, great. Don't abuse it and, use it in moderation. I think growing it in your backyard probably isn't the best idea. But if it's something that you use for a tangible benefit, or if it's not hurting the people around you, who am I to judge?
Interesting. Yeah. Kyle? No thought? Oh, I thought. It was interesting, though, you said that, though, because I do think if you're using it as we went over this too, is like if you're using it as a means to have fun or entertainment or things like that, it seems okay. You know, if you have your life figured out. But if you're using it as a something to fill your hole, you know, that's quite dangerous. Quite dangerous. And maybe it's not the best thing to grow in your backyard. But I feel like I was like the anti-drug person, you know, in this conversation. But that wasn't the purpose, though. I think that, as I said, I use alcohol and things like that to enjoy myself socially. But this is something completely different, too. It's like comparing apples to oranges. Like, you know, drinking alcohol in a bar is not the same as taking a trip with psilocybin. It's not the same thing. You can tell us, Donald. But it's not the same thing. It's completely different. And you need to be responsible with it, I think. But the reason why people are using it, from the research we looked at, was finding meaning and purpose, whether that's curing or treating a psychological disorder or getting deeper and having self-discovery, a spiritual journey, as they say. Hashtag. I think that, it's not hashtag, but whatever.
Doesn't the hashtag come first?
It does. Yeah, it does.
All right.
But I think that's a good wrap-up. I think we had a good debate about it. It's interesting, too. We'll see how the trend goes. People will... You know, if psilocybin 5 years from now, they have, like, clinics and stuff, like markets where you can, like, sniff it and smoke it. And we're like, whoa, we talked about it. Probably not. I don't know. But
We'll find out.
Yeah, history will tell. History will tell. But any final thoughts on this debate about psilocybin specifically, or substances, meaning, purpose? No one? Am I the only one with a final thought? Any final thought just about the topic?
I guess just to reiterate what I already said, it's something that it's super new too. I mean, we've always had some form of mushrooms in the cultures that we live in, and I've taken them, which was fun, but I haven't had them in years, and I never thought to myself that I would need them for any kind of crutch. So I guess my hope is that, you know, with psilocybin and other drugs, people obviously choose to use them for fun, but not let it get ahead of themselves. So that'd be the only thing I'd have to say about that.
My final thought: baseball's back. People are used to watching on the couch. All is normal for baseball fans.
That's fun.
That's my final thought.
Baseball's back, and now you can watch the way you've been watching it.
Go Nationals.
Go Nationals. Oh, go Phils. No one? Okay, well, that's fine. All right. Yeah, it'll be a weird season. Yeah, hopefully you have a podcast about that, about the weird baseball season.
We might.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, my final topic, final thought, is about this topic. And it's been an interesting one because it really derives from meaning and purpose. Most people who would take psilocybin or other substances suffer from meaning and purpose. Or they have, again, as we said, psychological disorder. And that's a different subject. What I want my final thought to be about is people who are having trouble finding their meaning and purpose in life. Why are they here? I went back to this throughout the podcast. And one way, of course, is your vocation, what you do, what your job is. It could be teaching. It could be engineering, building bridges. It could be being a doctor, healing people, fixing people, being a nurse, whatever it may be. It could be your vocation. That is your meaning and purpose. But there also is another derivative of where you can find meaning and purpose, and that is through God. Of course, religion. It's important. Less and less people are going to church, and I understand why. The church has failed people. It has not delivered. It has not given people purpose and meaning. It's just giving them something else to do on Sunday. And it's sad. And many churches are dying. It's true. I know this personally in this industry. But the best thing it can offer you is that God is always present. God is always faithful. God is always with you. And no matter what struggle or challenge, fear, passion, or joy you go through, no matter what you go through life, God is with you. You should know that. And God wants the best for you too. And he can give you meaning and purpose. That's one avenue. You can choose many, many others. But I hope this podcast in general, the whole conversation, can get you to think about meaning and purpose in life. Why are you here? And however you figure that out, whether it's through psilocybin or going to church or going through a career and self-satisfying yourself through the progression, I hope you find it. We all want everyone to succeed on this podcast. And I hope you continue to listen. So stay tuned, stay happy, and we'll see you later.